We have Bernie Sanders out there, and he's trying to put lipstick on a pig, and it's making me sick because I'm getting all these tweets from people. Whenever I tweet with that Feel the Burn hashtag that Bernie Sanders people use, I always get this economic illiteracy back from people, and I keep thinking to myself, do they not get the why? Do they not understand this basic tenet? And here it is. More socialism, more death and misery. That's it. It's a sliding scale of economic misery, death, and destruction. You go to one end, socialism, a little less socialism, a little less death, misery, and destruction. A little less than that, a little less death, misery, and destruction. You start moving into free markets. Now, listen, I'm not suggesting here during the show that that there should be total anarchy. I'm not suggesting there's no role in government. But what I am going to suggest to you, unquestionably, is that more socialism, more death, more destruction. I don't care what you call it. Now, this was suggested by Hayek in The Road to Serfdom that this doesn't have to happen overnight. The idea that this sliding scale of socialism was going to lead to jackbooted thugs at your front door 10 minutes after it was implemented, it doesn't always happen that way. That's why it's called The Road to Serfdom, not just serfdom. But this is a sliding scale, and Bernie Sanders is suggesting, and this is very dangerous because kids, listen, youngsters out there, youngins, or as me and Ian here were joking before the show, Utes, all the Utes out there, if you saw My Cousin Vinny, don't be a sucker. This guy is selling you poison. He is selling you snake oil. We are already way past on the continuum, the middle point. We are way past and sliding down the scale further on the socialism scale, and the misery scale is catching up. The Freedom Train left the station a long time ago, and Barack Obama has sped this thing up dramatically. Don't be a sucker. He's trying to put lipstick on this pig by saying, oh, it's democratic socialism. Ladies and gentlemen, and to the Utes out there is no such thing. There is socialism and there is democracy. The more socialism, the less democracy and freedom, the more misery, death, and destruction. It's a scale. Bernie Sanders wants to push that scale further to the misery, economic destruction, and just about all of the other corresponding garbage that comes along with socialism in any form. He wants to push us further to the left on that scale. Why are you being suckered? I was saying the other day, I tried to use the word snookered, and I said snookered. It's like snookered and suckered. But that's what he's doing. This is like a cheap magic act. It's been tried before. What more evidence of the failure of socialism do you need other than the bodies, the starvation, Venezuela? Now, I know we're going to get a caller about Sweden, and that's what I know it. I guaranteed, Mr. Producer, mark my words, Mr. Call Screener specifically, mark my words, we will get a caller about Scandinavia or Sweden or something, 100%. And they'll say, but Sweden, meanwhile, keep in mind, they don't want to move to Sweden, these people. Most of them have never been there. They read about it in a book once. Or they heard about it from someone who heard about it, who read about it in a book 5 years ago. Sweden to them is like utopia. They love Sweden. Have you been there? No. Do you actually know anyone who's Swedish? No. Did you read anything about the economy of Sweden? No, never. But someone once told me it's a really great place. Listen, I'm sure it's wonderful. I love Swedes. You're the best. But there is a sliding scale. And today what we're going to do, I'm going to walk you through this because it's going to be important. Don't tune out at any point during the show. Because we have to learn how, in Matt's suggestion, Matt Kibbe, who wrote this piece, we have to learn how to talk to our kids about socialism. Because what I'm doing now isn't good enough. And I acknowledge that. I'm on a little bit of a rant. I'm okay with that. I'm emotional about this topic. But I'm going to go into you on the show why socialism and more socialism equals more misery. And why there's not necessarily a black and white delineation point. Well, are we socialist or are we? It's a scale. As you start to introduce more levels and more principles of socialism into an economy, you get more misery. And I'm going to explain to you why. I'm going to explain to you how it works, why it works that way, and hopefully you can explain to one of these youngsters out there at the Bernie Sanders rally with their iPhone who wants to share other people's property. Hopefully you can explain to him him or her the dangers of what they're screaming and yelling and cheering for. Why would you celebrate the destruction of your own liberty? This is the greatest country in the history of mankind. The prosperity staring you in the face is unavoidable. You are being suckered. All right, now quickly, before we go to the break, because I want to just start this just a little bit, okay? First, we have to understand, like, what are we getting away from first? Because it's awkward kind of when you talk to some of these feel the burn people, these Bernie Sanders, so-called democratic socialists out there. They'll attack capitalism, but they can't even tell you what it is. You'll say, oh, capitalism. And this is what, by the way, be prepared for this argument when you start telling Bernie Sanders supporters just how devastating socialism or so-called democratic socialism is. They'll never tell you what's great about their system. They'll tell you what's bad about the current system. They'll be, well, what are you suggesting? We continue what we're doing now? As if crony capitalism and the Barack Obama machine is an example of what libertarians and conservatives want. They'll only comment on the current system and how bad it is. They won't comment on the downfall of the forfeiting of the liberty they're suggesting through their democratic socialist regime. But what is capitalism? I was at a speech once, and this far-left academic college professor gets up, and it was kind of a little, I guess, symposium type thing. And he says, well, what are you suggesting? That capitalism is great? Don't you think it had a role in the housing crisis? I said, you think that was capitalism? What do you think capitalism is? He was pretty quiet after that because he didn't understand it. What is capitalism? I would make the suggestion to you that it's not an ism at all. Capitalism is some very simple things, right? The idea that you can trade your labor for a market wage? Shocker. Do you work for a living? Do you work for a living, for a wage? You want the government to determine that wage? Or you want to be able to do that yourself? So if you make $100,000 a year out there as a computer program or whatever it is, you want the government to say, no, it's too much. If you don't, crazy, you're a capitalist. You believe in private property? You have an iPhone? You have all of Bernie Sanders supporters. You have iPhones? You have iMacs? You have a car? You take Uber where someone else owns a car? It's not a government service showing up, right? I'm not crazy, right? You believe in private property? Yeah, then you believe in capitalism. Whoa, you're a total extremist. Finally, do you believe that prices in the real world should be determined by rationing or by pricing? Should government ration products, or should people be able to freely go out there and buy them in a price system? You do it all the time. Are you on a bread line somewhere, a government bread line where they're rationing out bread? No, you go to the store and you buy your Wonder Bread for whatever it costs. You don't even know what capitalism is. You insult it, but you live it every single day. Don't feel the burn. Don't be a sucker. I'm begging you, to the younger generation out there and the older generation and the middle-aged generation who are Sanders supporters out there. But I'm begging you, I'm imploring you. I really like this place, okay? It's a really special place. It hit home for me traveling around the world, with the Secret Service that, there's really no second place, guys and ladies. There's us. There's us and there's really no one else. And again, it's not a qualitative judgment on the moral or ethical character of people around the world. I'm a Christian, and I firmly believe with every fiber of my being that every human being on earth was touched by the hand of God and is a collection of individual experiences that's irreplaceable. But there's no question that this place, where we are now, how we've chosen collectively to live with each other is special. There's never been anything like it. It's being wrecked. And it's being wrecked in front of our very eyes by people who are taking part in their own destruction. And they don't even realize it. They applaud at a guy on stage. This guy, folks, listen, I'm an enormous supporter, obviously. My opinion doesn't matter on this, of course, of the Bill of Rights. People used to ask me when I was campaigning for office, they'd say, what's your opinion on the Second Amendment? I'd say, the best part about the Second Amendment? My opinion doesn't matter. Obviously, I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment. Check out any of my YouTube videos on your right to self-protection. But the nice part about the Bill of Rights is my opinion really doesn't matter. So I will protect to the death Bernie Sanders' ability to go out there and lecture a crowd on the evils of capitalism and his new form of democratic socialism. But I'm telling you, this man is having you take part in your own destruction. I say that with absolute certainty, knowing that there are very few things in life that are certain. I am telling you with certainty you are taking part in your own destruction. You can't even practice what you preach. Now, I'm just going to go back to where I was before the break. What part of the system we have now is so bad that you want to throw it out? Which one? So you're not a free marketeer and you're not a capitalist. Okay. So you don't want to own private property? But you own private property. But you own it now. If this is evil, and you are partaking in this evil by owning your iPhones and your iMacs and your Beats headphones or whatever it may be, and your Urban Outfitter clothes. I don't know if that's even hip. I'm not really sure. I shop at Lucky. It's the only thing that fit me, right? You own that now. Well, I don't get why you're partaking in the destruction of society by willingly and openly participating in a system that your Messiah, Bernie Sanders, is advocating against. Do you want to and if you want to overturn that tenet of capitalism, I'll go into the other ones as the show goes on, the other tenets of capitalism that you're hypocritically living by while preaching against them, then why don't you just volunteer your stuff away? Why don't you share, air quotes, your stuff? Share it. Many of you are privileged, I'm sure. I'm sure a lot of you come from wealthy families. Why don't you lead by example, guys and ladies? Give away your stuff first. Go ahead. We're all watching. Set up a Facebook page. Someone can come claim your iPhone. You won't do it because you're intellectual cowards. You want everyone to share other people's stuff. Listen, I like to give you an umbrella theme of the show to guide everyone where I'm going. The theme of today's show is more socialism, more death and misery. It's a sliding scale. But as Matt Kibbe says in his piece, which I've been quoting throughout the show here on Conservative Review, it's time to talk to your kids about socialism. But it really is. It's time we start to explain to people what socialism, so-called democratic socialism, any form of socialism really is. Because you have these, I don't even want to say charismatic messengers. You have these uncharismatic messengers like Bernie Sanders who are out there talking to these kids about this form of organization where people have have been forced under this governance structure known as socialism. That has led to death, destruction, economic misery, breadlines. I mean, think about it. Socialism's record of success in failure is 100%. It successfully fails every single time. It successfully fails 100% of the time, and it keeps coming back. And it seems that the pseudo-economists out there and a lot of these politicians out there who just want control, because it's always about control with the left, they keep raising this thing up like this demon from the dead. They put lipstick on this pig, and it keeps coming back. It doesn't matter who it is, whether it was Mondale or whether it was FDR or whether it was Barack Obama, Elizabeth Warren. Now it's Bernie Sanders, and people are being suckered again. Don't be a sucker. So I explained to you before the break for all the Sanders supporters who attack capitalism and free markets. One, it's not an ism, okay? There's not some religion of capitalism unlike the religion of socialism. Socialism has to be a religion because it requires faith, because there's no evidence. You know, I actually have faith in Christ because I'm a Christian. But, that's what you have to understand. Like, socialism is a religion in the same respect because all it is faith. There's no evidence other than evidence of death and destruction anywhere. They attack capitalism. They don't know what it is. And they live by the exact opposite tenets. They live of socialism, and then they demean it at every opportunity. Capitalism has private property. They own private property. Why don't you set up a commune and share your stuff? You know, it's funny, right? That there's this definition of socialism I saw. If you Google socialism, try this little stunt during the break. Check this out. One of the definitions I see creep up is comical. It's like the democratic control of the means of production. Really? Okay, so one of the examples I write in my piece at Conservative Review, if you want to check it out, it's there today, is the democratic control of the means of production. So let's get this straight, right? If I own a farm that I've been farming my entire life, and I produce whatever, sweet potatoes, what's democratic about you coming in as the socialist and saying, hey, Dan, yeah, it's time to share your farm. Whoa, do I get a say in this? No, we're all going to share it. You're going to share what, my farm? This is how I make a living. Yeah, but we're going to come in and share it because we're all about sharing is caring. No, we're going to share your farm. Oh, okay. That doesn't really work out for me, does it? Or you're going to share my stuff, but you're not going to share your stuff. Oh, okay, that's fair. So that's the democratic control of the means of production. What is democratic about you stealing my stuff? So you come in, you confiscate my sweet potatoes, my family starves to death like they did in the Soviet Union, and that's democratic control? Like one man, one vote, or one man, no vote? Whose version of democracy is that? And keep in mind, again, these are from the hypocrites, total hypocrites, who live by the exact opposite principles they preach. Capitalism stinks. That's what they'll tell you. But they own private property. They don't want to give their stuff away. You can't convince them to give away their iPhone, their iMacs, nothing. There's a great video out there of Dinesh D'Souza. He's on a college campus and some kids up there talking about white privilege. The kid then admits that it's his white privilege that got him into this elite college. So Dinesh says to him, well, are you going to give up your seat to someone else? Oh, no, I'm not giving up my seat. Oh, so you're taking advantage of this thing you think is evil. White privilege. It's so evil, but I take advantage of it. So you think private property stinks and we should democratically share other people's property, but you're not actually willing to share any of your own. But it's not just it's not just the private property thing that they're hypocrites on. Again, what's another principle, if we can even call it that, of capitalism? It's not really even a principle. It's just a simple idea that we should be able to trade our labor for a wage. I mean, do you work for a living or do you want to have your government? I don't get it. If you work for a living in a free market system, all the college professors out there, and you know what, for this specific section, all the college professors that are behind Bernie Sanders, what is the government rationed wage you think you should get? Because right now you work in a generally free market system, right? We don't live in full-blown socialism yet. What is the government rationed wage you should work for? Because here's what I think. I think if you support Bernie Sanders, what do you think of this, folks? If you are an academic out there that supports Bernie Sanders, I think we should all take a vote on their salaries, and I think we should just cut them in half, because I just think that's fair. Let's share. Let's share, right? That's democratic control over the means of production, right? Universities, a means of production, a means of producing human capital. It is, right? I'm not crazy, right? Let's all take a vote on it. I think your salary should be $45K. It's fair. It's about the average salary, right? What do you think? Oh, no, you don't like that. Oh, I get it. You like democratic socialism, government enforced rationing of wages and other thing and price controls when it's other people's salary. Oh, okay, now it makes sense. When it's other people's salary, it's all cool. It's all good then. All right, one more. Let's nail another one for all you socialists. I'm going to get to, I promise, I haven't forgotten this. I'm going to explain to you in very clear terms why the sliding scale of socialism, why more socialism equals more death, misery, and destruction. I haven't gotten to that yet. Right now I'm just trying to set you up as to when they knock capitalism, the socialists, they don't even know what they're talking about. They're total hypocrites. Private property, they own it. Price system. So you figure the three tenets of capitalism, right? Prices, the ability to own private property and trading your wages for labor, right? There's a price system in a free market, right? You don't agree with the price system? Well, what other system is there? Oh, rationing. You know, Thomas Sowell, I was reading in one of his books once, he was writing how, you know, there's only two ways to allocate assets in a society, right? You can ration them or you can price them. So if you have, the society makes 10 chairs and there's 20 people living on an island, you have two choices, right? You can price the chairs and allow people to work and purchase them, or you can ration them. And who gets to ration them always? Oh, it's the socialist bureaucrats in charge, the planners. And who do they give them to? Their connected buddies. You ever notice the oligarchs in these socialist regimes always get rich? There's always a couple billionaires in there. How did that happen? I thought we were sharing. Oh, we're not sharing anymore? Oh, a couple people are sharing a little less and a couple people are sharing a little more, depending on their connections. So you don't like the price system. What, you're suggesting rationing? Oh, no, we're not suggesting that. Well, what are you suggesting? Is there a third way to allocate scarce resources? Ladies and gentlemen, is there any resource in society that's not scarce? Anything. Water, food, tables, chairs, briefcases. Looking at my iPhone. They're all scarce, right? Nothing's unlimited. I'm not crazy, right? I'm not missing. So how we allocate those scarce resources, that's how a governance structure and economic system is set up. When you believe in capitalism and free markets, you believe in a price system where a consumer can go out and bid on a product. If he really wants it, or she, they can go out and bid on it, or what we would call buy it, or try to buy it, or negotiate down. And you may say, oh, well, people can take advantage. They can raise the prices. Yeah, no kidding. And then other people come in and try to undercut them. It's this mysterious word called competition. You may have heard of it once or twice. Or you can follow the socialist system, where you can ration stuff. Oh, they don't ration. Oh, really? You sure about that? I tweet out this article, I think it's in The Guardian, constantly, about how in the NHS, the National Health Service over there in the UK, How they're openly talking about how they ration their health care over there. Oh, if you're a smoker now, you're not going to get this. If you've lived this kind of lifestyle, you're not going to get that. What part of that, lefties, do you not get? You can price health care, and then you can enable competition, which Obamacare doesn't do, by the way. They force you to sell the same product, the same car to everyone. Or you can ration it, where people die on waiting lists. That's it. You live in this perfect world that doesn't exist, where you think there's this third way. No, the third way is democratic socialism. Is it really? Where's that happening? There will be a Scandinavia caller, mark my words. As I speak, there's someone typing about Sweden on the screen. 877-381-3811 if you want to call, by the way. All right, listen, when we come back on this, I'm going to get into it a little bit now, but on the other side of this break, I'm going to get into it in more detail, because it doesn't do me any good either to just whine and complain, because you need to know how to explain to your kids why this stuff is so dangerous. You have to understand why socialism is a continuum. And the continuism is, as you move more towards socialism and more degrees of socialism, you have less degrees of individual liberty. It is a zero-sum game. More socialism equals less democracy, less individual liberty, and more misery. And here's why. Milton Friedman had these 4 ways to spend money. For you Friedman fans out there, you probably read this in a couple of his books. He used to talk about the 4 ways you can spend money, ranging from most efficient to least efficient. You ever heard me speak? I use this all the time in public. I'll give you the most efficient way, and when we come back from the break, I'll go into the other ones. And then you'll see right away, once I get through it, it'll be crystal clear to you why more socialism, more government control can only lead to inefficiency and misery. It's the only way. There is no other way. But here's the first way. First way to spend money is you spending your money on yourself. Well, why is that efficient? Well, it's efficient for 2 simple reasons. It's your money. So the cost of the product or service you're buying matters, right? You go out, you buy a sweater, you buy a doctor's time in the form of a hospital visit. The cost matters because it's your money. So when you spend your money on yourself, cost matters. But not only does cost matter, which makes it efficient, quality matters too. Because you're buying the product for yourself. You're buying a doctor's time, you want to make sure that doctor gives you the time you need. You explain to him why you have a cough or whatever it is. You're buying a sweater. You buy an ugly Christmas sweater, then you want the ugliest Christmas. That's like the trend now. You want the ugliest Christmas sweater. That's like an inverse quality, right? The uglier, the better. Then you want the ugliest Christmas sweater out there because it's yours. You buy a brand new car. You want the best car you can get. Cost and quality matter because you are spending money on yourself. That is the freest of markets. Everything is downhill from here. All right, we come back from the break. I'm going to get to the 3 more ways. And when I get to the 4th, it is going to be crystal clear to you why, as we move more, we're moving down this scale of spending money towards more government control, why you can only be screwed by this. That's it. It's a raw deal every time. Folks, as if on cue, every time I do a show on socialism and how not to get suckered by the socialism magic trick out there, there's always a caller about there's always a guy, Sweden, Scandinavia. Keep in mind, they don't live there. They talk about it all the time. So, Alfonso, are you on the line there?
Yes, I am here.
Okay. Well, you're our Scandinavia caller. You proved my point. Someone always calls about, so tell us how wonderful Scandinavian countries are.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking the call, first of all. And, I think the difference is that I have lived and worked in Scandinavia a few years ago, and I'm a metallurgical engineer. And,
okay.
I think that what people need to know about the Scandinavian countries is that, first of all, they are free elections, so you can vote for your leaders and your representatives. They have free enterprise, like we have here. They have freedom of religion, even. So
let me ask you, hold on, Alfonso. So they have free enterprise, meaning what? So if the government in a Scandinavian country confiscates roughly 50% of the wealth in the country, how is that free? You're free half the time. It's not really freedom, right?
I mean, what you've been describing, in my opinion, before you took the call was a communist country, not a...
No. Hold on. Time out. Throw the red flag under the hood for review. False start. You're not listening to the show then. Because clearly you're making the mistake I said the Scandinavian callers would call in and make. I'm telling you that socialism, free markets are a continuum. that there is a degree that as you move more towards the principles of socialism, which is supposedly the democratic control of the means of production, which really means government theft of the means of production, as you move down that scale, there is less and less and less freedom. That's what I'm telling you. You're exactly right. I'm not saying that Denmark or Sweden is the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. That's the whole point of the show. What I'm trying to tell you is Bernie Sanders is advocating for a system like they have over there where the confiscation of the fruits of your labor is up to roughly 50%. So you can say all you want, Alfonso, and I appreciate the call. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you. Don't get me wrong here. I do appreciate you calling in. But you can't say, oh, they're free markets. And they're free what? Half the time. Government confiscates half the wealth. What, that's your measure of freedom?
It's a taxation issue you're talking about.
No, wait. Taxation is the forceful confiscation of wealth, is it not?
Not if you're getting free education and free...
Wait. Let me get this straight. It's free as long as they confiscate your money via taxation at the end of a barrel of a gun. They put you in jail if you don't pay. But then it's free?
I think the question will be, are you willing
can you answer that question?
Of taxes?
Wait, can you answer that question, or are you just going to talk over me and do this? Alfonso, is it free, or is someone paying for it by having their wealth forcefully confiscated by government?
Well, we have to pay here taxes anyway, here 20 to 25 to 30% anyway.
Alfonso, no one's disputing that. I'm not suggesting there's not a role for government or taxation. Would you agree with me that degree matters? That if you're paying 100% of your wealth towards taxation, that's a little different? Well, listen, I got to let you go because I can't take the economic nonsense sometimes. You just don't get it. They're taking your money, man. How is that free? They're taking 50% of your money. Half the time you work for someone else. I'm Dan Bongino, at DBongino on Twitter, filling in for Mark. I'm a contributing editor over at conservativereview.com. If you want to check out my work over there, just go to the website, click on the contributors tab. You'll see my name, and you can click on that tab. You'll see my writings, and I produce a lot of other content over there. I think you'll like it. I wrote my piece this week over there at Conservative Review about what I'm talking about today, socialism. And how Bernie Sanders, don't be a sucker, people. Why are you being suckered by Bernie Sanders? This guy's not even charismatic. You know, for a party that prides itself, the left, on supposedly this party of diversity. Keep in mind, it's only diversity based on race, nothing else, not life circumstance or anything else. They've got this old white guy up there who's totally not charismatic, telling people how he wants to take more of their money, and they're all partners in the destruction of their own lives and their own liberties. Like, hey, Bernie, you're the best. We love you, buddy. So I started the show explaining how socialism, it's not a black or white on or off switch. Matter of fact, it's a very kind of otherworldly idea to some people. They have a tough time getting their arms around what it is, and I think Sanders takes advantage of that. Because what he does is, here's the socialist, here's their MO. What's happening now really sucks. Mine's better. What's your system? It's not what's happening now. That's what they do. And everybody cheers. This is great. We're all like seals clapping for him. Hey, Bernie, this is terrific. So before the break, I was talking about how Milton Friedman once described this word well. How there are these 4 ways to spend money, right? And these 4 ways to spend money marry up perfectly with this continuum scale of, ways to organize society that are efficient, free markets and capitalism, ways to organize society, which will lead to death, destruction, and breadline. Socialism. So this is why more socialism, more government control equals more misery for you. Okay, the first way to spend money, right? The most efficient way. You spending your own money on yourself. Cost and quality matter. Very simply. Because you are buying a product with your own money, so the cost matters. You're buying the product for yourself or your kid in your nuclear family there. You're buying it for yourself. The quality matters too. What's the second way? Less efficient way to spend money. You spending your money on someone else. So cost matters, right? Because it's your money. You care about the price. You're buying a sweater for little Bobby or whatever it is. You care about the price. Does the quality matter? Yeah, but not so much. If the sweater, it loses a thread, whatever happens, it's not your problem. You bought it for little Bobby. So it's a less efficient way to spend money. Well, what's the third way? An even worse way to spend money, allocate precious resources, right? Other people spending other people's money on themselves. So if I'm buying a hotel room and little Bobby's paying for it because it's other people spending other people's money on themselves, right? I want the best hotel room out there. But I don't really care about the price. Little Bobby's paying for it. Give me the best hotel room. Give me the suite. But if other people are spending other people's money on themselves, the cost doesn't matter. But at least the quality does. What's the fourth way to spend money? This is the worst, most inefficient way to spend money. And this is why more socialism, more death, more destruction, more economic misery every time. Other people spending other people's money on other people. Does cost matter? Nope. It's not your money. Does quality matter? It's not your product either. So who cares? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to government. That's what government is. Why do you think our genius founders, who are unbelievably smart, they foresaw a lot of these problems, having come from a place far different. They foresaw these problems. Why do you think they limited government to the areas of mass consensus? Okay, we need a national defense. Like everybody pretty much agreed on that. No one ever said we're going to tax people to spend and to finance our military because it's the most efficient way to get a military. Folks, you still have cost and quality problems when other people spend other people's money on other people. But what they understood was the downside to a private military, a group of mercenaries running out there, could be pretty dramatic when you have the power to kill. The founders understood this. They limited government to court system, our military, areas of mass consensus, where they understood the inefficiencies of government spending, other people spending other people's money on other people. They understood that neither cost nor quality mattered, but they understood that the alternative was far worse. You couldn't have a private military. We didn't have a private court system out there. What's the incentive there? You paid by the conviction? In that case, give me two. I mean, what are you going to do? The founders understood this. That's why the Constitution limited government, not you. Because they were afraid that the other people spending other people's money on other people cost and quality problems were going to infect the entire society. That's the continuum, though. We're moving down that scale now. You saw it. Perfect example. Obamacare, right? I don't want to do the show on Obamacare, but the example of this is clear as day. So think of the third way, right? Other people spending other people's money on themselves. At least you get a quality product, right? Obamacare's so bad. They didn't even want anything to do with it. Congress, remember the Grassley Amendment, the congressional exemption? They gave them all an exemption from Obamacare. It was so bad. They don't even want anything to do with it. They're like, no, get us out of this. We don't want nothing to do with Obamacare. They are totally out of it. Now that they're out of it because it stinks and other people, Congress, is spending other people's money, the taxpayers, on other people, does the cost of Obamacare matter? Heck no. Does the quality matter? Its quality's so bad, they don't even want to be in it. Oh, you think the congressional exemption wasn't real? You believe that liberal stupidity that they're feeding you? Just Google the Grassley Amendment and the history of it if you want to slap in the face like you've never seen before. This thing stinks to high heaven so bad, they had to get OMB to give them an exemption to get out of it. That cesspool in Washington, D.C. Throw the bums out. I say it all the time. Unbelievable. And to the, rhino Republicans out there who haven't done a darn thing to change this trend, you're the problem too. So you have these four ways to spend money, and we are currently living with a candidate on the left who is recommending we move down the scale more to a system where government can take even greater control over the economy. So now what happens, okay? So first part of the show, I explained to you what capitalism was, what free markets were. The ability to own private property, nothing controversial. The left owns private property. They hypocritically want to share everyone else's property. Trade your labor for a wage, and a free market system that prices things. It doesn't ration it. There's nothing controversial about free markets, folks. So we explain that. Secondly, I moved on to explain to you why socialism, as you move down the scale towards a government taking greater control over the economy, let's say they tax you at 30%, 40%, 50%. Each degree of taxation is one less degree of economic liberty you have. It's not a black or white switch. That's why that caller Alfonso before, I was so aggravated. He proved my point. Because you can't compare Sweden to the Soviet Union. No kidding. That's the point of the show. The whole point of the show is as you move down in that direction and slowly confiscate the wealth of people, you get a more inefficient government and you have cost and quality problems. And the further you get down there, the worse it gets, the more misery you get. That's why private insurance is flourishing in certain areas of Scandinavia. They're paying, again, private insurance, even though they get, quote, free health care. Alfonso said, oh, don't worry. The caller said, it's all free over there. Yeah, it's free. As long as you pay your 50% tax rate, even higher in some place at the end of a barrel of a gun, then it's free. So what happens now as you move down this scale and you take the Bernie Sanders approach? We're going towards democratic socialism, where we democratically share everyone else's property while not sharing our own. And we have these cost and quality problems. What happens? Well, step 2 jumps in now. Step 2 is you get these third-party payer problems. What are third-party payer problems? Well, when the government becomes the third party to a transaction, you want to go buy a bagel? No, the government's going to pay for it. You want to go for open heart surgery? No, single payer. The government's going to pay for it. Who are the 3 parties? You getting your chest cracked open. Ironic, right, too? The left doesn't even like going to the DMV. But they want the government to pay to crack open your chest and operate on you. Yeah, that's logic for you. Liberal logic, right? Who's the third party? It's you getting your chest cracked open. The doctor doing the chest cracking. And then you have the third party, the government. That's a third party payer problem. So as government takes greater and greater control of the economy, they become the third party payer. What does that do? What does the third party payer do? It completely disconnects the supplier of the service, the doctor, from the patient. You don't care about the price because, as Alfonso said, it's free. The government took your money already. You're just like, hey, whatever. I don't care about the price. They already confiscated 50% of my wealth. Just crack my chest open. The doctor doesn't care about the price either. He wants to get whatever he can take because he's no longer that. It's. What does he care about the price if you're not paying? He's not going to negotiate with you. The doctor says to himself, listen, it's not a knock on doctors. Please, you've been subjected to this awful system. But the doctor's saying, oh, the government's paying? Listen, I'll take 10,000. But if you were paying and didn't have 10,000, they'd say, what do you got? 8? All right, we'll take 8. They don't do that when the government pays. So the government, the whole unbroken leg fallacy, right? You know, the government breaks the leg and acts like nothing happened, right? They cause this problem. They introduce more of this poison, more of this other people spending other people's money on other people problem. Cost and quality go out the window. Cost goes through the roof. You get these third-party payer problems, and then you get to step 3. So I've been talking about socialism on a sliding scale, how Bernie Sanders wants to move us even farther to the left of Barack Obama. Not his ideology. Barack Obama's ideology is as far left as it gets. Make no mistake. So please don't email and go, what do you mean far to the left, Barack Obama? He's as far to the left ideologically as he can be, Barack Obama. I'm suggesting where we are, not where he wants us to be. If it was up to him, we'd be in full-blown government single payer. You'd have a government job. That would be it. I get it. Believe me, I get it. But Bernie Sanders is suggesting a system. Remember they asked about the 90% tax rate? He was like, yeah, that's all right, 90%. Yeah, we should confiscate 90% of people's income. Yeah, that would work. Yeah, that sounds great, Bernie. So I've been explaining how more socialism leads to this payer problem. The inefficiencies of other people spending other people's money on other people, that's government. Cost and quality don't matter. This is why government can't possibly compete with the free market, ladies and gentlemen. And the more you introduce government into a sector, whether it's healthcare, where they pay about, 40% of healthcare now is paid for by the government? As you start to get to 45, 50, 60, 70, the cost goes up and the quality goes down. It has to. Because it's other people, government officials, spending other people's money, you the taxpayer, on other people, other taxpayers. They don't care about the cost or quality. There's no way to get past that. Please, Bernie Sanders supporters, if you take one thing from this show, understand this. There is no fixing government inefficiency. It's not possible. You can fix it if there are, and believe me, there are a lot of inefficiencies in the private sector. But you know how you fix them? You put the companies out of business. No one's suggesting capitalism is perfect, but it's a whole lot more perfect than what you're suggesting, which is government control over a sector of the economy. All right, if you want to give us a call, 877-381-3811. Let's go to Robert in Albany, New York. Robert, you're on with Dan Bongino. What do you got for us?
Hey, Dan, I'm reading a book called A Politically Incorrect Guide to Socialism.
Oh, I love that book. Is that Kevin Williamson's book?
It is, yes.
That's the greatest book ever. I love that book. I've read it twice.
Yes, and Mark has a blurb on the front cover. He's got a chapter called Why Sweden Stinks.
It's my favorite chapter.
Well, here's an example he gives. He says the average income for a Swede in Sweden is $36,000. The average income for a Swede in the United States is $56,000. And the poor slob in Sweden is going to pay more in taxes with his $36,000 than the guy here with his $56,000.
Robert, I'm so glad you called. I love that book. I talk about the book all the time. There's another portion of the book where he talks about the environment, and he mentions how, all these greenies are all socialists, right? But how the worst environmental disasters in human history have all been in socialist countries. The Yangtze River, the Three Gorges Dam, the Aral Sea, the Pemex disaster.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good book.
What I have to say about Bernie Sanders is it's easy to say you're a socialist in Vermont, where the population is homogeneous, there's no welfare, there's no crime. Try being a socialism where socialism holds sway, like in Cuba, where the average wage is $19 a month, or Venezuela, where this socialism led to toilet paper shortages.
Right.
All the toilet paper.
Yeah.
You could say you're a socialist here, but if you're not living under socialism, okay, then you don't know what you're talking about. Go somewhere. Go to Cuba. Go ahead. That's where socialism is working. So go ahead.
Robert, remember this. I got to run. I got to take a break. But socialism, they care about the poor in theory. It's the real world they have a problem with. It's been said over and over and over again. Hey, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Yeah, I love that book. Kevin Williamson wrote a great book there. I read it twice. What is it called? Yeah, The Idiot's Guide to Socialism or something. All right, listen, we come back. I still have to get into this third-party payer problem and how this gets worse. Because what the government does, they drive up the price of everything in so-called democratic socialism, and then they complain about the prices going up as an excuse to get themselves more into the market. I mean, don't you find it odd that health care and student loans are exploding and government's involved there the most? What a scam. Some guy just tweeting me, trying to prove to me how the government is so much more efficient than the private sector in providing health care. Oh, yeah, they're doing a great job. The actuaries of Medicare have already said that they're bankrupt. They've already said, listen, we're going to be bankrupt soon. We can't afford this. Medicaid costs are exploding. Far beyond. If you need this laid out for you, go read Plunder and Deceit, Mark's book. There's a chapter on Medicaid and Medicare. It's very readable. Just read the chapter if you need any evidence of how, quote, efficient government spending on healthcare is. Are you kidding me? What a joke. Yeah, they're so efficient, they're rationing it in the National Health Service in the UK. If you smoke in the UK, yeah, you're not. So what, you smoked your whole life? You pay taxes. No, you can't get this lung transplant. You smoked. You may say, well, that's fair. Yeah, well, what if it was your mom? That's the whole point. This is the big joke about Bernie Sanders types and these libs. I'm not trying to take anything away from you. You're trying to take my freedom, my economic liberty, my healthcare liberty, my education freedom, my school choice. You're trying to take it from me. I don't want anything from you. Just get out of my face. Just leave us all alone. All I have to do is prove that your system stinks. I don't have to prove capitalism is perfect or free markets are perfect. You know why? I'm not trying to take anything from you. You're trying to take my economic liberty from me. You're saying capitalism and free market stinks, so we're going to produce the stinkiest system of all time, socialism, to take away your freedom. And you're trying to prove to me somehow it's better? How? How is taking away more of my money, more of my health care, more of my education liberty away, how does that benefit me? These people act like they're doing you a favor as they try to rip the freedom and liberty from your hands. Folks, these are very real decisions, okay? As I've been explaining the entire show, socialism is a continuum. It's not an on-off switch. And when you have people like Sanders recommending more of the poison, which is more government control over the areas of your life, every dollar in taxation more he proposes, Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, or anyone else, every dollar is one less dollar you spend. That's another degree of economic liberty flushed away. That dollar taken from you cannot be spent by you anymore. It's not your choice. Now, one person tweeted me and asked me why I was focusing so much on Sanders. Good question. I think Sanders is the more dangerous of the two candidates. I do. Listen, they're both, I get it. So please don't tweet me suggesting in any way, shape, or form that I think Hillary Clinton is in any way anything other than a far leftist looking to do the same economic damage Bernie Sanders is. Here's the difference, though, ladies and gentlemen. This is important. Sanders believes it. Clinton is power hungry. She will say anything to get elected. I have no doubt she's a far leftist. But I'm not sure Sanders is that great of a politician. I think Sanders is really a diehard socialist who really, and these people, these believers like Barack Obama, they are dangerous. Because this guy actually believes stealing away your economic liberty, stealing away your choice in healthcare by recommending a single payer system. Single payer? A single payer is a single controller of healthcare, government. And remember, when other people spend other people's money on other people, the government takes your money and spends it on someone else. Cost and quality don't matter because they can't matter. Combine that with these third-party payer effects where the government pays and it disconnects you from the healthcare system. You're not paying. You're paying through your taxes. Your money's already gone. Nobody cares about the price anymore. You get these third-party payer effects. You get these cost explosions. What happens next? After the government poisons the well, do you ever notice, by the way, how everywhere the government gets involved, the so-called cost curve explodes and the government acts like it had nothing to do with it? Like, man, student loan costs. The costs of going to college are out of control. The government's got to fix it. Why do you think the cost of going to college is out of control? Because the government, quote, fixed it. Folks, that's why. Why is the cost of a Honda Accord not out of control? Because if it was out of control, nobody would buy it. But that's not what happens with college. Because there's a third-party payer intervening. There's no cost control because there doesn't need to be cost control because you're not paying directly. To a degree, I get it that I paid for my own college too, but I'm saying as the government injects itself to a greater degree, it disconnects you more and more. Costs go up and up and up because it detaches you from the market. Think about if they tried that with Hondas or Toyotas or Fords. Oh, like they do with college. The cost of college, folks, is up 400% since I've been born. Imagine if that happened with the Honda Accord or whatever it was. I mean, I'm just pulling that out of my head. People would stop buying it. They'd go shop somewhere else. But that doesn't happen because a large percentage of college costs and healthcare are not paid by you. It's paid by government that doesn't care about cost or quality and has completely disconnected you from the market. Nobody complains about that anywhere else. I've given the example over and over. Why don't you see, a Bentley showroom in the middle of downtown Haiti? Now, the leftists are probably laughing. Oh, well, I don't know. Why don't you? Well, why? Because no one could afford it. So how is it that you have that right now with college? How do you have a system where college still exists, healthcare still exists, but you hear Obama and Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, oh my gosh, healthcare is so expensive, no one can afford it. How can you have a product no one can afford? Think about this, chuckleheads. Does that make any sense? How can you have a product no one can buy that still manages to exist? Oh, because the government's injected itself in between and managed to take your money and pay for it anyway. That's why it's so expensive. So then they inject themselves into the market. And what does the government do after it creates an out-of-control cost curve, which it's done in healthcare? It says, folks, the government's here to solve your problems. We're going to institute price controls. In Obamacare, it's called community rating, which is a de facto price control. Look it up yourself. We're going to introduce price controls. The free market has failed. Even though there was no free market. The government caused the cost curve to explode. Remember, this isn't happening anywhere else. It's happening where the government's involved. No one complains about the cost of macadamia nuts. So then government gets involved and you get price controls. Now, what happens when you get price controls? This may sound a little bit familiar if you're familiar with what's going on with Obamacare. You get increased demand. Let's say the government says we're going to put a cap on these costs for healthcare. You can't pay more than this amount. That's what community rating is. It says people of this certain age can't pay more than this percentage of what a young person would pay. You get increased demand. People come in and they want the product more because why if I don't have to pay? If they were selling Corvettes for $30,000 because the government came in and said, hey, I got an idea. We're going to put price controls on Corvettes. I like Corvettes. They're going to be $30,000. We think Corvettes are too expensive. People would rush to the dealer. I'd be there tomorrow. There would be increased demand. First step of price control. What's the second step of price controls? Decrease supply almost instantaneously. Well, why? First, because people scoop it up at the cheaper than the market clearing price, because Corvettes aren't $30,000. They're about $70,000 now, or $60,000, whatever they cost. So there's increased demand, decreased supply. Secondly, making it even worse, why the supply decreases of a product. It's because why would Chevy produce a Corvette at $30,000 when the car costs them, say, $50,000 to make? What do you think, they're going to lose money? You know, my brother-in-law is a doctor out in Oklahoma. We used to joke around a lot. You know, he'd say, you know, he's talking about health care and Sooner Care and all that stuff that they have out there, which is their Medicaid type program. He would say, you know, whatever, it costs me, I'm not going to give exact numbers, but say it costs him $5,000 to turn the lights on in the morning in his office, the electric bills, administrative staff, whatever it may be, right? Equipment he's got to buy. Why is he going to go to work every day if the government put a price control on it and they're only going to compensate him for $4,000? Was he going to lose $1,000 a day every day he shows up? Only in liberal fairy tale land, in bizarro Superman world of the liberal, do people actually do that. And keep in mind, the liberals don't work for free. The liberals are getting high-end salaries on college campuses as academics. There are liberal doctors out there wolfing up the money. They're not volunteering their salary back. They're volunteering your money to be shared. They want to share your property, not theirs. So you get a decreased supply. You get a decreased supply of Corvettes because they're not going to sell them for $30,000. They just stop making them. People scoop them up, they're gone. What's the third and fourth step? Black markets and quality problems. Why do you get black markets? Because if I've got a Corvette, I'm going to sell it to you on the side. I know it's worth $50,000 or $60,000. I got one. Here, folks, I'll sell it to you for $40,000 or $50,000. I just don't tell the government. It's kind of what happens in Venezuela right now. We were joking about the shortage of toilet paper. There's a black market for toilet paper. Why? Because the government screwed it up. There was an increased demand because they put price controls on it. Decreased supply because the company's not going to make it at a loss. So black markets develop outside of government control where people just ignore the government. Ironic that socialists in Venezuela, people who supported Maduro and Chavez, are the ones buying toilet paper on the black market, not realizing that the very system they supported wouldn't give them the toilet paper they needed to take care of their business in El Baño. Comprende? Why do you get quality problems? Because if the government comes in like they always do in socialism, as you get farther and farther down the scale, once the system falls apart, like you're seeing in Venezuela right now, where Maduro doesn't want to leave power because he's a tyrant, of course, in Venezuela, which they all are, you get quality problems. Why do you get quality problems? Because the guns come out eventually, folks, just like they are in Venezuela right now. The political prisoners, this is what you get. Because eventually they show up at the door to the Corvette dealership and say, hey, listen, we told these people everything was going to be free, and darn it, you're going to make it free. So you better keep producing those Corvettes. Hey, sir, I can't afford to sell this Corvette at $30,000. I'm going to go out of business. Do you hear what I said? This is my Kalashnikov. You're staring down the barrel of a 7.62 round coming at you at 3,000 feet per second, Daddy-O. You better keep making those Corvettes. So what do you think they do? Make a top-notch Corvette? They make a piece of crap. That's what they do. They roll out the Lada, which is what you had in the Soviet Union. The Lada. Remember the Lada? They were these boxy cars, the Lada, that when you drove them off the lot, the wheels would fall off. They were a lot of trouble. This was Russia. The Lada. You ever seen the Lada, Mr. Producer? You ever seen one of these? I spent a lot, you got to Google that. I spent a lot of time in Russia when I was with the Secret Service. Yeah, but a pretty decent amount of time. Of all the countries I've been to, I was there the longest. And they're still around on the streets. They're these dumpy little boxy cars. And you ask any Russian about the Lada, it's like, Agita, Pepto-Bismol. The Lada was a disaster. Of course there's going to be quality problems when the government controls prices because they can't produce anything at a revenue-producing rate. They're not producing any revenue. But this is what Bernie Sanders wants for us, folks. All right, getting back to my topic. I've been talking about socialism, how you have to look at it in degrees. What Bernie Sanders is repackaging, he's putting lipstick on this pig, and he's calling it now democratic socialism. We need to be more like Scandinavia. But what he's not telling you about this is that, and what Hayek indicated, and what his entire book was about, why it was called The Road to Serfdom, not just serfdom, was this is how it happens. The slow diminishing of your liberty, bit by bit by bit, and how if you view socialism as degrees of liberty lost, it starts to make more sense. Democratic socialism, folks, I'll be honest with you, we're already there. The government already controls 40 or 50% of your economic life if you're an upper middle income earner. Listen to me. If they're confiscating your wealth, between state, federal, and local taxes. If you're middle income or upper middle income, that's roughly where you are now. How is that free? Half the time you work for someone else. It's not optional. They are taking your money. What Sanders is suggesting is that we should take more. And he's got these kids, suckered kids. Stop being suckered by this guy. That somehow Bernie Sanders should take more of your money because Bernie Sanders, in his infinite genius, he's such a business wizard, knows better what to do with more of your money than you do. How is that? These first 2 hours of the show, I was explaining how Milton Friedman's 4 ways to spend money, right? And how the fourth way is the worst possible way to spend money. Other people spending other people's money on other people because neither cost nor quality matter. Folks, that's government. Whenever government takes your money and spends it for you, and I'm using air quotes, the cost doesn't matter. It's not theirs. They took it. The quality doesn't matter either because they're not even spending the money on themselves. They're spending it on other people. You'd almost rather the government confiscate your wealth if you had a choice and at least buy a product for themselves. At least you know they care about the product. But they didn't even do that with Obamacare. They wanted out of the system. It stunk so bad. The rot of it stunk so bad. The stench of death surrounded Obamacare that they wanted themselves to get out of it. They didn't even buy the product for themselves, Congress. They gave themselves an exemption. You would almost rather these people confiscate your money and buy themselves a Lamborghini. But at least they'd buy a product that worked. They're spending it on other people. They don't care. Listen to me. There is no way to escape this. Never. It's not possible. Anytime government takes your money, it is inherently inefficient. There is no other way. They will never spend your money on you better than you spend your money on yourself. It's not possible. Violates every single rule of psychology, economics, sociology. It's not possible. Please don't be a sucker for Bernie Sanders. I'm begging you, young kids out there, don't be a sucker. All right, the first couple hours of the show, I was talking about how many people are going to get suckered by Bernie Sanders. Folks, they don't even live by their own standards, these people. You know, when is the Bernie Sanders team, the volunteer base, going to set up like a commune, right? We're all going to share our phones. They all want to share everyone else's stuff. They don't want to share their own stuff. Do you ever go to like a Bernie Sanders rally? I don't have to go. All I got to do is look at the pictures. People have their clothes on, but yeah, you have clothes. Someone made those clothes for you in a free market system where they traded their labor for a wage. Get rid of those. What do you need those clothes for? Capitalism produced that. Get rid of that. The stain of capitalism. You're wearing the stain of capitalism. You see them with their smartphones taking pictures of Bernie. Who do you think invented that? The government? What do you think? The government invented the Polaroid? Invented film technology? Who do you think invented that? Why don't you give up your stuff? You know, and one of the things he's arguing for, one of the central tenets of his outrageous campaign, his campaign of like the money fairy and everything's free except someone else is going to pay for it. One of the tenets of his campaign has been single payer. Single payer was the government should take over healthcare. And they constantly crap all over the healthcare system in the United States, which is in a lot of trouble because of the government, by the way, because of Obamacare and because of the government's intrusion into the economics of healthcare as a third-party payer. But forgetting that for a moment, even with the massive government intrusion into the market for healthcare, it's about 40% they're paying for now. Through you, by the way. You're paying for it through them, which is causing all kinds of resource allocation issues. One of the things you hear all the time, I had a guy the other day, somebody sent me a tweet or run right on my Facebook. I want to jump out a window when someone sends me something about this. They go, we spend too much on health care and we get so little in return. How do you know we spend too much? They always say, growth in healthcare spending, it's grown by, and they'll throw the percent in there. But you know what they don't tell you? Growth in entertainment spending has exploded. Growth in spending in a number of different products has exploded. They don't say, we're spending too much on movies. How do you know what too much spending is? Let me coach you a little bit on how this works, okay? We're the richest country in the world, thanks to free markets. No thanks to Bernie Sanders suckers out there, right? So we're in this generally free market system, which Barack Obama and some rhino Republicans are trying to get rid of. But we're in this generally free market system. It's led to the greatest degree of prosperity anywhere in human history. So we have people, and there's this concept in economics called an opportunity cost, right? What's the cost of the opportunity that was foregone? So let's say the concept of an opportunity cost, best explained by, let's say you're a web developer out there, and you don't like the web anymore, and you want to go work in a fast food restaurant. Listen, nothing wrong with that. That's your decision. But if you want to claim that somehow, my yearly salary, say $15,000 in the fast food restaurant, you can look at it two ways. You can say, well, I'm making $15,000. But the reality is, if your web development salary was $100,000 and you just don't want to do that anymore, you didn't make $15,000. You actually lost $85,000. There was an opportunity cost to that decision. The foregone opportunity of being a web developer cost you $85,000. The left doesn't get any of this. They don't understand the concept of economics. They don't understand opportunity cost. So what you hear is you'll see them throw all this stuff out there all the time. They won't tell you the cost of the foregone opportunity, right? But they'll say, oh, it's the worst in the industrialized world. We're spending too much. We're spending, quote, too much on healthcare because the opportunity costs, thankfully, are very low. People don't have to, as you get older in age and you need health care, there are a lot of people out there in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. They need a heart valve. They need stents. They need orthopedic care. I just had shoulder surgery from a lot of activity. I'm only 41, but I feel 81. The opportunity cost for them to get that surgery is very low. If you're in a country with a struggling economy, a communist country or a socialist country, and you're not making a lot of money, the opportunity cost for you to get that surgery is, do I get a shoulder surgery or do I eat? I think I'm going to eat. So you live with a bum shoulder. That's not what happens here. The opportunity costs for people here to go get medical attention are low, so they go and they do it because we're a very wealthy country. Thank you, free markets and liberty. So that's why we, quote, spend too much. But again, they don't say that about anything else. Again, costs on entertainment have gone through the roof too. No one goes, we spend too much on Broadway. Why do they say that? Because remember, with the left, it is always about control. I'm going to get to another story in a minute to prove my point. I always talk about these conflicting narratives. What a disgrace what's happening in Oregon. But I want to talk about this quickly because they always say this. Well, we spend too much on healthcare. They have zero evidence about that. What's the base level of spending on healthcare? And if that's the case, why are you not spending it? If you know what you're supposed to spend on healthcare every year because you magically know if you're going to get sick or not, then tell us all what it is. Enlighten us, please. What are you, like the Stygian witches? Remember Clash of the Titans? The eye, give me the eye. They have the eye. They can tell you what everybody's healthcare cost is. No, Joey's spending too much. Bobby's spending too little. Mary over there's definitely spending too much. Yeah, but she's going to die if she doesn't have that heart surgery. No, she's spending too much. How the heck do these liberals know this? They don't know anything. They couldn't even get a website going for Obamacare. But now they know how much everybody should spend on health care. The opportunity costs are low here. We're a wealthy country. People have money. The opportunity costs to get a stent put in, to have your shoulder repaired are low. You're probably not going to die if you do it because people have money in the United States. Again, thank you, freedom and economic freedom and free markets. No thanks to Obama and their socialist acolytes. Then you'll hear them say, we spend too much, which is crap. They'll say, well, it's the worst in the OECD world, the developed countries. Folks, people who say that, you're idiots. I'm sorry. I don't know any pleasant way. It's totally, completely idiotic. That thing has been debunked 65 different ways from Sunday. Do you realize one of the statistics they use in that is infant mortality? But here's the catch, folks, because there's always a scam with the left. We measure infant mortality differently in different places. Kind of something we should know, right? Infant mortality rate is high. We measure in the United States, and if I'm off on a little bit of numbers, if the point's the same either way, we say we measure here. I'll just give you an example. Premature births are considered live births in the United States. Premature babies are, because of the premature condition, are more likely to not survive than babies who are born at term. But if another country doesn't measure a live birth until, say, 9 months of a woman carrying the baby, you're talking about apples and oranges. No one tells you that, of course, about the report. That's why these things are always debunked by conservatives. This is why conservatives are such good debaters and liberals can't debate at all. This is why they always resort to, you're a racist, or you don't like immigrants, or women, or whatever. Is there another group out there? Yeah, Muslims. You don't like Muslims either. That's right. This is what because they don't know how to debate, because everything they say is garbage. The United States, the worst system in the world. Really? That's incredible. Did you know 40,000 Canadians a year that we know about roughly cross the border? Read the story in the Daily Caller. It's been out there for a while. Cross the border to get health care in the United States to pay. They flee, again with an L, free with an R, health care. Free health care in Canada that they're paying with grotesque levels of taxation. They flee it to pay for it again in the United States, but it's the worst system in the world. When you look at the things that matter, cancer survival rates and things like that, we're at the top all over the place. But these buffoons on the left, guilty of felonious buffoonery in the umpteenth degree, want you to believe that the United States is the worst healthcare system in the world. Babies are dying everywhere. This healthcare system stinks. It's like The Walking Dead. Remember Sheriff Rick in episode 1? He's walking through the hospital. There's zombies in there. People are ripping IVs out of them. It's the United States healthcare. This is terrible. Give me some brains to eat. I mean, this is what the left wants you to believe. It's a scam. There's always a scam. You just have to find out what the scam is. If something appears to you to not be common sense, which is usually most of what comes out of liberals' mouths, just do some homework. You'll find out in seconds that it's bunk, it's garbage. Like the chucklehead who tweeted me before about how the government is more efficient at delivering health care than the private sector. They use this about Medicaid or Medicare all the time. You know what the scam is? Here's the scam, folks. Medicare. They're like, oh, the administrative costs of Medicare are so much more efficient. Oh, yeah, government's very efficient. I said to myself, I heard that once ago, that doesn't make any sense. And he threw out some number. So I just looked it up and I put Medicare is more efficient than the private sector. Myth. And about 100 different studies came up and showed you how they do this. Here's how they do it. Medicare is an older, sicker population. So they spend more money on health care. So when the numerator grows, they distort the fraction to make you believe it's all about the allocation base. When you allocate it per person, administrative costs, per individual, how you would do it. Put it this way, if you had a company and you wanted to determine what your individual cost per worker are, you do it per worker, right? When you do it per individual, per Medicare recipient, the administrative costs of Medicare go through the roof. Of course it's not more efficient than the private sector. Remember with the left, there is always a scam. You just have to find it. It's always out there. And this OECD, we're the worst in the OECD world for healthcare. It's a scam. Just look up the infant mortality rates. They measure it differently. They want you to believe, there's mass death of infants in the United States because it's so bad. And we spend too much on healthcare. How do these guys know? They don't know that. All right, so before the break, I was talking about socialism and how degrees of more socialism, more misery. That's it. Every degree of socialism is less a degree in a zero-sum game for liberty, is less a degree of your economic liberty, whatever you socialize. You want to socialize economic policy? That's less freedom for you. You want to socialize healthcare? Less freedom for you. You want to socialize education? Less freedom for you. And what they really want to do is they want to socialize the risk and privatize the reward, because what they really do is they take care of their friends. I mean, believe me, the left loves as much as the rhinos. They love crony capitalism. What do you think Solyndra, Enter One, and all that other stuff was?